Hey, you guys, welcome to another episode of The Rachel Cruze Show. And this episode is an Ask Rachel episode, which means I get to bring one of you on the show and talk about your situation and answer your questions. So this episode, I have Jacqueline on with me. Hey, Jacqueline.
Hi.
I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So glad. And where are you calling from?
Hampton, Virginia.
Virginia. Okay. So great. So great. And you are a mom with a little boy. Is that correct?
I have a 10-year-old and one on the way.
And one on the way. When are you due?
October 7th.
Okay. Oh, it's a great time to have a baby. That's awesome. Yep. So great. Okay. So what's your question?
Well, I lost my job in February, and it was a company I was with for 3 years, and benefits and everything. And my part-time job became my full-time job, and that decreased my income a little bit. So I'm horrible at budgeting. So I'm trying to figure out, single mom with 2 kids coming up, the best way to make sure my ends meet and I'm not stressing.
Yes. No, that's a great question. And number one, I'm so sorry that you lost your job. What kind of industry were you in?
Healthcare.
Okay.
Yes.
So whenever we look at this factor that, money flows 2 ways, right? It flows in and it flows out. So those are like the only 2 variables that we can somewhat control. And so looking at your outgo is where I always like to start to say, okay, what are your expenses? And so in your situation, and anyone watching, especially if it's kind of crunch time, right? If the budget is really tight and you feel like, and you're even making less than you were a few months ago, is to focus on what we call the 4 walls. So this is going to be food, shelter, utilities, and transportation. Now within those 4 walls, there are places that you may be able to cut, right? So food is a great example. So when we say make sure you have food, that obviously doesn't mean you're going out to a $100 dinner every night and eating steak, there's an element of, okay, let's cut back and maybe shop at a different grocery store to lower that grocery bill. And, you can make adjustments, but you still want that to be a priority. Same with your home. And so what's your home situation right now? Where are you living?
An apartment I'm renting.
Okay. You're renting an apartment. And is your monthly rent around 25% of your take home pay?
I think when I had my job initially, the main income job, my paycheck was always enough to cover my rent. And then the next paychecks were my bills, groceries, whatever.
Okay.
So I wasn't really having to budget there. But now $200 less a month, it's kind of...
Yeah, it changes the formula a little bit for sure. Yeah, well, I would look at, just to say, okay, is this the apartment I'm in, the area of town that it's in, like all of these factors, making sure that it's not eating up, close to 50% of your income, which some people, that's the case with their mortgage or their rent. And it's really hard to live on everything else when 50% of your income, is going to that. So that can be an area that you can look to say, okay, are there other options out there? Even if I have to drive an extra 15 minutes to work, is that gas money going to be worth it to have a cheaper rent? All of that. So kind of factoring that in. And then obviously your utilities, and if there's places you can cut back. I think a lot of people, especially during 2020, I feel like we piled on the subscriptions, right? Like Disney Plus and all this, we're like, okay, just bring it all because we need entertainment. And are there places, even right now that you can cut back on just even the simple things? I mean, and in your case, like you said, I'm like even $50 a month. Whether it's cable or, again, these subscriptions, anything that you can find extra money in those utilities is going to be huge for sure. And then obviously transportation, making sure your car's good, you have gas for it and all of that. So those are the things that you want before anything else to make sure that those are covered. And then everything else under that almost is optional. And what I would say too is prioritize everything else under those 4 walls. So think about the things that you do spend money on, whether it's stuff for your son, whether it's things for you. I mean, whatever it is that you spend money on, list those out and then prioritize and say, okay, this month, if I have money beyond those 4 walls, what is the first thing I want to make sure that we are able to do, and the second, the third, and you just kind of really make that plan. And it's going to take a while. If you haven't consistently been budgeting, it's going to take about 3 months. So give yourself some grace because it's going to be hard. But I promise the math of it, once you get the facts down on paper and you do that budget and you list everything out like to the dollar, I mean, like so dang detailed and specific, there can be this level of relief because I think our emotions can get to us and the fear and everything that you've walked through. I'm like, Jacqueline, I'm like, you're expecting, you lost your job. I mean, all of that, like there's a lot going on in your life right now that I'm sure can be scary and losing sleep at night. I mean, right? Like the stress of it all. So being able to kind of calm those emotions by having those facts in front of you is going to be one great step in helping you with your journey. Does that feel doable? How does that all sound to you?
I think that sounds really great and doable. I think I like making lists now. That's a big thing, is carrying a planner with appointments and grocery lists and not going extravagant. Like I've never really been extravagant, but I mean, I also have a picky eater.
Yes.
So he's nitpicky on what he eats. And so just, seeing what I can cut back on, what I can finagle with.
Yep, absolutely. And then, so that's all kind of that outgo of money, right? The expense side. And then the income side. And the great thing is, that what you have to offer to the marketplace, that you can make more. Like, right? Like if you find that job that fits perfectly, your talents, your gifts, your passions, all of that, you might be able to bump up that $200 and even exceed that. And so I would be on the lookout. Again, keeping the job you have for sure, because that's consistently bringing in money, which you need, we all need. But to be able to look beyond that and say, okay, what else? Where else can I put myself out there? Because to get back into a position that you were before February, like you said, you paid more benefits. I mean, there's a lot of that stuff that creates a life with a little bit less stress. And I would say this too, because of everything we just came out of, I'm like, it may not be your dream job. It may not be in the field that you did work. It may make you feel uncomfortable. If you get that position, you're like, oh, I haven't done this. I'm going to have to learn. Like it's all the change is very uncomfortable, but I would be on the lookout if I were you to find ways to bring in more income, because not that money solves everything by any means, but there is that math equation, right? Your income minus your expenses, and you want it to equal zero with some saving and giving in there as well. But to be able to do that really well, that income, if that can be brought up at all, which I know you're juggling so much, but any place you can find that is going to be so helpful.
Absolutely.
And you're amazing, Jacqueline. I mean, like you're doing it. So what's been the joy in your life right now on this money journey? What is like one great thing, and then what's one kind of hard thing that you keep getting stuck on?
I think the hard thing was losing that comfortable income that I knew was there, but pushing myself and just knowing that it's not forever. It's temporary. It's a stepping stone, and just, having the motivation to keep going, I think.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. And you sound motivated. I mean, even talking to you before the call, you're like, I'm ready. I'm like, you got this, girl. You've got this. And I know it can be so hard, and there's going to be good days, there's going to be bad days. But on this journey, there's so many moms and single moms watching you right now that you're just giving them such encouragement. So thanks for just being intentional. That's right. Don't give up. Yes. So thanks for being intentional, Jacqueline. And I promise you're going to be able to do this. You really are. You're going to be able to look at your life in 12 months, have that new baby in your arms and say, wow, I did this. Like I stuck to a plan with my money. Your income's going to be up, and it's going to be phenomenal. So you're going to be able to do it. I promise.
Thank you. I'm excited.
So great. Well, thank you, Jacqueline. Thanks for your question. And
thank you, Rachel.
Absolutely. And everyone out there watching, if you have a question, you can go on any of my social media channels, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and ask the Ask Rachel question, and we will be searching those. And maybe you can be on the show as well. So Jacqueline, thanks again. And everyone out there, remember to take control of your money and create a life you love.